James 5:1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Your riches are corrupted, and your garments are moth eaten. Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you, and shall eat your flesh as it were fire. Ye have heaped up treasures together for the last days. Behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud, crieth, and the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. Call halal Yahweh Ba'ashem Nawashai Bahashem Rakah Kodash. Double honors unto the apostles, double honors unto the elder bishops, salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives and their freedom to do so now more so than ever. To the scattered elect that are scattered around the four corners of the earth among the heathen nations that look like the heathen nations, and to the Akwath that are listening and learning, to you I say Shalom. This is your brother Malcolm from the branch of the Great Millstone here in Chicago, coming at you with another lesson. And this is one of those things where we're going to let Psalm 64, in fact, let's get it, and 8 play its course. Psalm 64 and 8. So they shall make their own tongue to fall upon themselves. All that see them shall flee away. All right.
To a dollar-backed global system.
Look, since the end of World War II, the dollar has been the safe place to go, and it's been backed up by a couple of things. It originally was backed up by gold, but President Nixon took us off the gold standard, so there's no hard asset backing up the dollar anymore for the last 50 years. But also it's been backed up by the strength and economic power of the United States and the fact that oil has always been traded in dollars. If that were to end, that would mean the end of the U.S. dollar. Look, there is a perfect storm happening right now, Will. The world's reserve currency being that, having that status has been a real privilege, but we've abused the privilege by wholly reckless monetary and fiscal policies over many years, certainly over the last couple of years, which has really devalued the dollar. On top of that, now you do have this perfect storm of Biden's weakness, his war on American domestic energy production, the Ukraine war, and as you point out, because of all of these things, we've got America's enemies led by China forming a new economic bloc. And all it would take at this point now, because we're at this pivotal moment, Will, is for Saudi Arabia, who has indicated that they're open to this, to say, you know what, we're going to be open to considering other currencies to trade.
Let's stop right there. This is Sirach, of the book of Ecclesiastes 10 and 8. She talked about unethical things. This is Ecclesiastes 10 and 8, and it reads, because of unrighteous dealings and injuries and riches got by deceit, the kingdom is translated from one people to another. So as a result of that, many of America's allies and former allies are seeking to do business elsewhere because aiding America always comes to their demise or to their hurt in their own financial dealings. Because why? They're told one thing and then another thing is done. They're getting false reports. And then something else, some other deal is made which hurts them. You know, they'll have a country per se participate in a sanction against a country that they've been doing business and trade with, which hurts their own economy. But since they're part of this, the system which is NATO or the EU, they're forced to do so to the detriment of their own countrymen, to the detriment of their own economies. And quite frankly, they're tired of it. This is Exodus 23 and 1. It says, thou shalt not raise a false report, put not thy hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. So, America will give these false reports, and they team up with America when America is doing witnesses, and now, when America is giving a false witness, and now they're paying a price for it. Okay? They're paying a price for it, teaming up or getting with the wicked. All right?
In oil. If that were to happen, there would be a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic system. And if that were to happen, you'd be looking at sky-high inflation, just raging Weimar Republic kind of inflation. If you think inflation is bad now, just wait. But more importantly, we would lose our economic dominance and we would lose our superpower status.
And they did this to their own people. She's saying what we will lose, and they've pretty much lost it. That's happening now, because Saudi Arabia is now joined on to America's enemies, full blown 100% in it. They're actually a part of BRICS now. Okay, this is Sirach, and who did this to America? Well, they did it to their own people, Esau, the leadership. Because you got to remember, even when there's what I've learned, there's a new term for the chemtrails. The guy called it the death dumps. I may have to do a video on that. He calls it the death dumps. When they spray the death dumps, they're spraying it over their own people, their own women, their own children. This is Sirach 14:5, and it says, "He that is evil to himself, to whom will he be good? He shall not take pleasure in his goods." So he's not going to take pleasure in this. His own people are suffering and about to suffer more, because America is facing a full-blown collapse, and they're going to try to launch this new thing, but it's going to fail. It's going to fail, and it's going to be. And matter of fact, they want the chaos. They're allowing this chaos to happen so that they can launch their new system, and then to be able to just completely be gods over you, because it's new systems. You won't be able to buy, sell, trade, move, or do anything without their knowing about it. And if you say or do anything that they don't like, they can control what you buy, sell, or trade. All right.
Now, I used to work with Monica Kelly. Very smart.
Yeah,
Very
this
smart.
clip alone had our accountant sort of writing to us and saying like, oh, she's like, I didn't even know this about the dollar not being backed by gold currency. We've talked about.
Wait, so her accountant, didn't know about the dollar not being backed. See, that goes to show you that the average American is not that smart. They really aren't. And I'm sure her accountant has degrees, all right, but is clamorous. Let me see if I can find that. Scripture is that she is clamorous and knoweth. Hold on. I think it's in Proverbs. Yeah, Proverbs 9:13. Let me play that back before I read it.
Status.
Now, I used to work with Monica Kelly. Very smart.
Yeah,
Very
this
smart.
clip alone had our accountant sort of writing to us and saying like, oh, she's like, I didn't even know this about the dollar not being backed by gold currency. We've talked about that before a lot.
Proverbs 9:13. A foolish woman is clamorous. She is simple, and she knoweth nothing. All right. So she got all these degrees, got to be an accountant, dealing with money, but she didn't know that the dollar was backed by nothing. All right. As a matter of fact, let me run that back again. And let me just let it play through without interruption, which I intended to do, but, the Spirit jumped on me to bring out some scriptures. This is only about 2-minute long clip. Trying to go back to the beginning.
Of us that are used to a dollar-backed global system.
Look, since the end of World War II, the dollar has been the safe place to go, and it's been backed up by a couple of things. Originally,
By the military, by the way, military might. All right. That's why America has bases in all these other countries all over Europe and around the world to ensure that the dollar, you know, that no one would get out of line. Because if you got out of line, you got labeled a terrorist, a couple of false flag events in your backyard. And next thing people were kicking in doors and dropping bombs on you. That's what happened to Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein. All right. They tried to go away from the dollar. And they got labeled, then they used the media smear campaign to demonize you. And then what happens after that.
it was backed up by gold, but President Nixon took us off the gold standard, so there's no hard asset backing up the dollar anymore for the last 50 years. But also it's been backed up by the strength and economic power of the United States and the fact that oil has always been traded in dollars. If that were to end, that would mean the end of the U.S. dollar. Look, there is a perfect storm happening right now, Will. The world's reserve currency being that, having that status has been a real privilege, but we've abused the privilege by wholly reckless monetary and fiscal policies over many years, certainly over the last couple of years, which has really devalued the dollar. On top of that, now you do have this perfect storm of Biden's weakness, his war on American domestic energy production, the Ukraine war, and as you point out, because of all of these things, we've got America's enemies led by China forming a new economic bloc. And all it would take at this point now, because we're at this pivotal moment, Will, is for Saudi Arabia, who has indicated that they're open to this, to say, you know what, we're going to be open to considering other currencies to trade in oil.
And that has happened. So it's just a matter of time before there's chaos in the streets of America.
Were to happen, there would be a complete implosion of the global economic system, but certainly the American economic.
And around the world, as she said, 2 Ezra 15 and 16 is going to hit everywhere because all these countries are connected to the dollar, which leads you to understand why the nation shall hate the whore and shoot fire on her. America being the whore.
System. And if that were to happen, you'd be looking at sky-high inflation, just raging Weimar Republic kind of inflation. If you think inflation is bad now, just wait.
She's right.
But more importantly, we would lose our economic dominance and we would lose our superpower status.
I used to work with Monica Kelly. Very smart.
Yeah,
Very
this
smart.
clip alone had our accountant sort of writing to us and saying like, oh, she's like, I didn't even know this about the dollar not being backed by gold currency. We've talked about that before a lot. But this is a scary way that she's putting it, but I don't think that she is fear mongering. I actually like what she says here, that it's been a real privilege to have a hegemonic dollar, because how did we get there?
I'll answer it. Through bloodshed, through rape, robbery, murder. Through lying, through cheating, which they kind of mentioned that. And she kind of tells a story about matter of fact, I'll just let it play and I'll bring out a few more scriptures.
How did the world come to have the dollar as the underlying currency of most global transactions? Well, the answer is by cheating. I'm going to tell you a little story. This comes from a very old out-of-print book called The Hidden Hand of American Hegemony. Because it's a real book, it's not in any kind of digital form. I had to take a screenshot of it, and I'm sorry that
they definitely won't be using this in the curriculum in the schools. All right, for real.
This looks a little bit too busy, but I want to tell you this story anyway because it's kind of fun, and also naughty, and also crazy. Okay, did I sell it? Good enough?
Naughty and crazy.
It's all of those things. So G.K. Chesterton once, I want to start from the second line. In 1974, U.S. Treasury Secretary William Simon was putting Islam through its paces. He flew on a government plane to Saudi Arabia to meet with the Minister of Finance because he was worried about the future of the international financial system and the place of the United States in it. Simon had put an extremely violent video on the in-flight movie system, and he was laughing uproariously while consuming prodigious amounts of whiskey. Alcohol is illegal in Saudi Arabia, though drinking it might seem like the national pastime to a new visitor in the kingdom. Ministers of state are not supposed to roll off their planes drunk, but according to another government official on the trip, this is exactly what Simon did. In 1974, the financial problems facing the U.S. Secretary of the Treasury were enough to drive any level headed soul to his cups. The federal government was running an ever increasing budget deficit, and it was Simon's job to finance it. But that year, the Treasury was preempting 62% of the debt markets in this country, and Simon called the cost of paying interest on the national debt just frightening. So he's realizing the economy is about to collapse. He needs to get himself drunk and get on a plane to Saudi Arabia because they can't pay their debts, because the currency is collapsing and they can't even pay the debt on it. At the same time, the price of oil was getting higher and higher. Financial markets are in danger of collapse, partly because of the new inflows of capital from oil exporting nations. The strain could be believed, Simon thought, if the OPEC nations put a larger amount, we're going to flip the page, of their accumulated funds into investment in this country, or if the American public spends less and saves more. Since it was unlikely that President Richard Nixon, while facing impeachment, would succeed in urging the public to spend less and save more, Simon turned to OPEC for funding. And how did that meeting go? I'm going to skip a few paragraphs. Well, his answer to the myriad problems faced by the Treasury and the United States in general, and indeed by most of the world, was to sell bonds. In 1974, Simon negotiated a secret deal so the Saudi Central Bank could buy U.S. Treasury securities outside of the normal auctions. A few years later, Treasury Secretary Michael Blumenthal cut a secret deal with the Saudis so that OPEC would continue to price oil in dollars. These deals were secret because the United States had promised other industrialized democracies that it would not pursue such unilateral policies. So it was through these secret meetings, drunken, underhanded dudes in secret rooms.
We'll stop it right there. All right. Like I read that Sirach 10 and 8, through injuries and deceit, these backdoor deals. All right. But let me grab one more scripture. This is Deuteronomy, one of my favorites. Deuteronomy 33 and 29. Happy art thou, O Israel, who is like unto thee, O people saved by the Lord, the shield of thy help, and who is the sword of thy excellency. And thy enemy shall be found liars unto thee, and thou shalt tread upon their high places. And we're doing so by bringing out this word, bringing out this truth. And Esau, Edom's place in prophecy is shameful spewing upon their glory. All right. So with that, I'm going to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakak, Padash, Wa Abba, Babal, Kwam, Yasharala, Shalom.